Happy birthday, Dad.
That day was my husband's birthday. We had a small celebration for him, who always supported our family. Right after that, we received the news that his company had gone bankrupt. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out, I earnestly reassured him, who was feeling down. I truly believed that we could overcome any adversity if we had love.
I'm going for a walk.
Those were the last words he said to us. After that, he never returned home and vanished into the sea, leaving behind a large debt for me and our daughter. My husband Diego and I had been together since our student days. I became a nursery school teacher, and he started his own investment company. Our paths diverged significantly, but we got married a few years after graduation and had our daughter Isabella, and 4 years passed. We were a close-knit family of 3. That day was his birthday. Our daughter and I made a homemade cake and prepared a small gift to celebrate him.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Oh, thank you.
He was very happy with our daughter's birthday wishes and the watch I gave him. I never doubted that such happiness would continue forever.
Not yet. This is the critical moment. Don't rush.
A few hours after the birthday party, when our daughter had fallen asleep, he was busy handling calls from work. I had seen him looking serious while on the phone before. He was probably discussing work, but I didn't understand the workings of an investment company.
Why can't you do as you're told? You incompetent.
After several exchanges on the phone, I heard him yell in frustration. I opened the study door to find him slumped over, his shoulders sagging. What's wrong? You're being too loud. You'll wake Isabella.
Sorry. I failed in a deal.
He muttered without looking at me. What? What does that mean? Are you okay?
No, it's bad. The company is going to collapse.
When I heard those words, it felt like the air had changed for a moment. I had heard from him before that an investment company could move an eye-popping amount of money overnight. If such a company were to go bankrupt, I could imagine what would happen. But strangely, I didn't feel pessimistic. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out. So I answered without hesitation. I wasn't ignoring the thought of how we would live or whether I could support us with just my income. But I was confident that we could overcome any hardship if we were together.
Thank you. I'm going for a walk.
What? But. He looked glum, understandably shocked by the company's impending bankruptcy. But I was reluctant to leave him alone at such a time.
I'll be fine. I'll be back soon.
Okay. Be careful. I reluctantly agreed to his outing, but my anxiety wouldn't go away. Please, come back. I beg you. I watched him leave, making him promise, but he quietly closed the door without responding. Looking back, that was my biggest mistake. I should have forced him to stay. What? Did you say just now? The police contacted me the morning after he left. We found shoes that appear to belong to your husband and what seems to be a suicide note. When they told me that, my mind went blank. The location was a scenic spot overlooking the sea in our hometown. But it was also a notorious cliff where people frequently jumped to their deaths. The police contacted me based on the personal belongings he left behind. Despite an earnest search, bad weather set in from that day, and the sea became rough, So the police quickly gave up looking for him. I wanted to search for him myself, but with a young daughter to care for, there was little I could do.
Where did Daddy go?
He'll be back. He promised. I muttered to myself, holding my anxious daughter. Why didn't I stop him then? Thinking that made my heart feel like it would break. But more bad things followed, piling on us who had suddenly lost our family. Please, go away. You can't just show up and say that. My daughter has nothing to do with this. Debt collectors started coming to our house daily, demanding I repay my husband's debts. It turned out that his company had already been in trouble for months before he disappeared. He had apparently borrowed money from shady sources. They claimed I was a guarantor for his debts, but I had no memory of agreeing to that. Debt collectors hounded us relentlessly, ignoring our mourning, and I was mentally cornered. They even showed up at my workplace, forcing me to quit. I had to leave the nursery school where I had worked since I was a new graduate because I couldn't let the children and parents see me dealing with debt collectors. Without him, everything about our lives changed. If my parents hadn't taken us in, I might have ended up taking my own life and my daughter's. With help from a lawyer and a judicial scrivener, it took several months to settle the debt issue. But the series of events deeply scarred both me and my daughter, and healing those wounds wasn't easy. Still, I couldn't stay down forever, so I started moving forward for my daughter's sake. 3 years later, after finding a new job in my hometown, our lives finally stabilized. My daughter, now 7, grew up to be a sweet child, made lots of friends at school, and was happy. I was also fortunate to have good mom friends, and our lives gradually improved. A trial session at the new sports facility? One day, a mom friend invited me to such an event. The large, clean facility had both sports and hot spring facilities, with a daycare center, so we could enjoy the services without worry. I didn't have any particular hobbies outside of work, but I thought it might be good to exercise deliberately for a change. That night, while preparing dinner, I glanced at the TV and saw a local program featuring the facility. I thought it was perfect timing and stopped what I was doing to watch. A man appeared on the show, being interviewed with his elegant wife and child, as a successful businessman who had established the sports facility with a daycare center. It was just an ordinary scene, but I couldn't take my eyes off the man I had never seen before. Why do I feel like I've met this person somewhere before? Like he's been close to me all along, like he's familiar. At first, it was just a slight unease. But when the man on TV started a certain gesture, I felt a chill run through my entire body. Diego. I involuntarily muttered. No matter how much our lives changed over the 3 years, I never forgot him. I saw a resemblance to my missing husband in the man on TV. Diego had a unique habit. When he was nervous, anxious, or lying, he would fiddle with the nail on his right middle finger. That's why his finger was always noticeably ragged. The man's distinctive habit and finger shape were unmistakable. But the world is vast. Maybe it's just a coincidence. I considered that. The man's face was different from my husband's, and his name was introduced as Kyle, so there was a possibility it was just a look-alike. However, the timing of my mom friend's invitation and this suspicion felt almost orchestrated. So, I decided to attend the trial session to investigate further. That day, my friend and I left our children in the daycare center within the facility and headed to the venue we were interested in. The event promised a relaxing experience, an hour of hot yoga followed by access to the hot springs. Before the session started, the company's CEO was going to give a greeting, and I thought, perfect. This is my chance to see him up close. I seized the opportunity and took a seat in the front row, right in the center, where I could see the man clearly. There he is, the guy from TV. He appeared before the participants and stood directly in front of me. The moment he faced the audience, our eyes met. I didn't miss the slight twinge of his expression. After breaking eye contact, he nervously started fidgeting with his right middle finger's nail. There's no doubt about it, it's Diego. He's here. As soon as I was convinced, forgotten emotions began to well up inside me. But they weren't feelings of joy or relief that he was alive. Isabella and I suffered for 3 years, and you've been blessed with a beautiful wife, adorable children, and success as a businessman? Give me a break. I was surprised at how I could feel this way about someone I once loved. Over the past 3 years, it seemed I had become a much colder person than I thought. You left me with debts and caused Isabella so much pain. You must have had a delightful 3 years. Enough is enough. From that point on, I had no hesitation. I contacted the administrative scrivener and lawyer who had previously helped me, and I bravely made a call to a certain agency. A few weeks later, a man showed up at my parents' house with a furious expression. As soon as he saw me, he yelled, "What the hell did you do?" It was Kyle, the CEO of that sports facility. "And you are?" I asked, deliberately acting unaware. Kyle's eyes narrowed in anger. "Don't play dumb."
It's Diego. Your husband. You can't pretend to forget after everything.
My husband disappeared 3 years ago, and you look completely different. Although I was just stating the facts, he glared at me with frustration. Since it was getting nowhere, I reluctantly decided to steer the conversation. "What do you want from me now?" With a sigh, I asked. Diego's face showed a mix of awkwardness and lingering anger. I was relieved that my parents and daughter were out at this time. If Isabella had been here, it would have been a disaster.
It was you, wasn't it? You set them on me. Why else would they come after me now? You were supposed to be the guarantor.
I thought, this is the very definition of shameless. So you admit you tried to saddle me with the debt. But too bad, it won't work that easily. 3 years ago, when I was being chased by creditors, I consulted a lawyer who legally proved that I, who had been made a guarantor without my consent, was not obligated to repay the debt. After that procedure, the creditors stopped pursuing my daughter and me. But did the creditors simply give up? Honestly, it was quite a risk. There was always the possibility you were someone else entirely. But contacting them was worth it. They thoroughly investigated. I had contacted the creditors who had once tormented me, betting that they were still looking for my husband. I informed them that he was now an entrepreneur, operating under a different name.
Because of your meddling, they came to collect. They said I owe 3 years' worth of interest. $200,000 is absurd. They told my wife and child everything.
And? What do you expect me to do now? We are strangers. By this time, my marriage to Diego had already been legally dissolved. The condition for dissolving a marriage due to a partner's disappearance is 3 years. So, in this 3rd year of his disappearance, I filed for dissolution of marriage and waived all inheritance. Now you can officially marry your new wife. That was always your goal, right?
Don't be ridiculous. I was kicked out of the house.
It seemed his new family had had enough of him, but that was no concern of mine. I heard your wife was originally a yoga instructor. She inherited a substantial amount of money from her wealthy parents and decided to start a business. You met at a seminar, right?
How do you know all that?
Who knows? I had heard all of this from the creditors.
Thanks to your information, we got him. We'll take every last bit of his assets.
They were saying some dangerous things, but I didn't care. Are you going by Kyle with your new wife? Using a fake name is risky. I hope you won't get sued for fraud. I figured he was being pressured from all sides and was in quite a predicament. Despite his yelling and complaining, he never laid a hand on me, likely to avoid the police. Even in such a situation, he remained that cautious. Was the idea to create a complex with a daycare yours or your wife's?
What?
Caught off guard by my sudden question, he let out a strange noise. Strangely enough, I remembered a conversation we had in the past. At the time, many parents at the nursery where I worked were concerned about their children not getting enough exercise, and I mentioned this at home. If they could easily drop off their kids and exercise, it might help them refresh. The words I casually said back then had been directly reflected in the sports facility my husband had started. Even though he had disappeared after saddling me with debt, Diego's cunning still amazed and infuriated me. Anyway, there's nothing I can do for you. There's no way such a lie could last forever.
Damn it. I was so close to having it all. You ruined everything.
He muttered to himself for a while, but then began to laugh quietly, turning a creepy smile toward me.
Well, if it's been exposed, there's no helping it. Fine. I'll just run away again using the same method. This time, I'll do it better.
In the end, he said something like that, showing no sign of remorse. Instead of deceiving people and running away, why not work and live honestly? I felt pity for my husband who had lost his sense of decency and tried to advise him, but it seemed nothing I said would reach him anymore.
Shut up. I've never worked under anyone. I'd rather die alone than be employed by someone now. You, an ordinary person, wouldn't understand.
What did you even come here for? Just to complain? If you're done, you can leave, Kyle. Someone's here to pick you up.
Ha! Who?
At that moment, the front door burst open, and several men stormed in. They didn't look like ordinary people and quickly surrounded Kyle. When my husband came to my house, I had already called the creditors over. As soon as one of them grabbed his arm, Kyle's face turned pale, looking at me with a mix of pleading and anger.
You bastard. You did it again. Ah, no, help me. I'm Kyle. I'm not Diego.
It's pointless. They'd been listening to our entire conversation from the doorway. You're already exposed. His words were incoherent, and he was in a complete panic.
Please, I beg you. What's going to happen to me? I could be chopped up and sold overseas. Won't that make you feel guilty? I still have a young child.
My brow furrowed when he mentioned child. A child? Whose? Isabella's father is gone. Oh, you mean your new wife's child? I feel sorry for them, but there's nothing I can do.
You heartless. You monster. No, I'm sorry. Help.
He insulted and apologized in turn, truly a busy man. Heartless is fine by me. I gave him the coldest look I ever had in my life. Better to die than to be employed by someone, right? At that signal, the creditors dragged him away. 3 days later, one of the creditors kindly came to inform me of the resolution. My husband had been sent to do dangerous work on a fishing boat overseas, arranged through their connections. I wasn't told the details, but they said,
There's no guarantee of his safety, but he'll earn high wages. He won't return to normal society again.
the $30,000 for my emotional distress from Diego would be paid from those wages, so I could only hope he survived. After that, I steadily built trust and achievements in my new job, and I'm now serving as a head childcare worker from this fiscal year. My daughter, now in 3rd grade, has made even more friends and is brighter than ever. How did you find this story? Please remember to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.